waking up Monday morning. Not sure how everyone feels. Shout out FootyCast live from BackChat Studios. I reckon we've got a split state at the moment, Skeeter. You got some people waking up, booking tickets to Melbourne for September, and some people burning their team wear, I would suggest. Mark, Reddings, Will Schofield, shout out FootyCast, BackChat Studios. How are you, Skeeter?
Good morning, Scully. I think you've summed it up, and we'll discuss that in further detail. Just pulled up out the front of the studios here. Just got the new car. Thank you. I'm part of the team, part of Paywise's team officially.
Frankie Agostino and the boys looking after you.
They have, and Garrick Ibbotson was there. I popped in on Friday to pick up the car quickly, and your mate, the bloke who was about the only bloke that played good footy yesterday, Joe McGovern, was at...
What's he doing there?
Well...
He's an ambassador.
He's an ambassador. So
it was just
EV vehicles, you need apparently a phone and a card. He lost his card. So the governor, he can take the mark, he can do everything on the footy bill. You reckon he can keep hold of his card?
Have you got an electric vehicle?
No, I don't have an electric vehicle.
You wouldn't know what to do.
I'd lost in space. So Frankie knew my limitations, and he's given me a Kia, which is great because I just press go and then just go to the diesel.
Press go.
Anyway, Paywise, good to be part of it, and we're family officially, Scully. Nice stuff.
While you were out the front, did you put the bins out? Or
today? No.
Okay.
I didn't know you had bins out there.
Okay, thank you very much. ShelterFootyCast.com.au. Find all this stuff there. ShelterFootyCast on socials. Skeeter, Frothtown coming up again this year. So we're going to talk about what we frothed on this weekend a little bit later on in the show. Make sure you use that 10% discount code at shelterbrewing.com.au. That'll get you 10% off all beer. It's Shelter FootyCast. Skeet wasn't in control of that one. Skeeter, usually before we do this show, we sort of sit around and think, what are the big issues over the weekend? The biggest one that jumps off the page for mine is coaches. I think there's coaches around the league. I didn't really feel like this last week as strongly, but this week as we look across the league, I think there's some coaches under the pump with 8 weeks to go in the season.
Yeah, well, going back 7 days, trust me, if you're in South Australia, you're thinking Ken Hinkley was completely under the cosh and was going to have to essentially beat the Saints and do some more good work between now and the end of the season to keep his job. Ross Lyon, after what we saw yesterday, he comes into the conversation, but I get the feeling, having seen an interview with the president of the Saints recently, that...
So they're happy, are they?
I think they are. Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any change with Ross.
They can't be happy, mate.
No, they're taking a step backwards. But St Kilda, let's be honest, St Kilda's list isn't that great. They haven't been, they've made the finals last year, but I don't know. St Kilda under the pump, and the bloke that coached the Eagles to a premiership, he has to come back under investigation, and the numbers don't lie, Scully. I know yesterday's performance is fresh in the mind, but Adam Simpson, I think, is coaching for his career at West Coast between now and the end of the home and away season.
So I was watching this unfold last week. The risk, I don't know what it is. It's not a risk, but the pressure was going to come on regardless, unless West Coast won, because of the build-up of who was available, right? All I heard last week was this is our best team on paper. And I don't think it was really out of West Coast either. I think we could see it. We spoke about it. It was getting spoken about a lot externally. They had their best side in. And speaking to a few people around the traps, they knew that. Like the players knew it. I'm sure the coaches knew it, that on paper, that's the best team they've had in years. So the expectation then is there's a performance coming. Well, at least a competitive one. And we've spoken about this a lot on the podcast over the last couple of years. It's been bloody grim watching West Coast. And if you're a fan, if you're a media type, all you really want to see is a competitive side out there. And this year, the expectations have gone higher because we've seen competitive efforts. Like you can't deny that the Derby and the Melbourne game and the Sydney game at Gather Round. Like there's been weeks where you look at West Coast and you go, oh, that's what they're doing. But if you look at yesterday, and we both, you called this one?
Yeah, and if you look at the past 5 weeks, they were competitive against Essendon. They've won 3 games. And they won those a fair while ago now, their last win.
Yes, but I don't think the fans need to win 10 games this year.
No,
they just want to see a competitive effort. So yesterday was insipid, uncompetitive, pants pulled down. They were embarrassed in the midfield, right? And as Adam Simpson said after, I think the only person with an excuse there is Elliot Yeo, which you spoke about.
Yep.
Elliot using his father. he looked flat, and I can tell you from experience, playing after losing anybody, whether it's a parent, a friend, or anyone close to you, you have no energy, and that's what Yowie was. And I think, see you later, Yowie. Park him to the side. Thoughts are with him. The rest of that midfield, no excuse, and the rest of them, they looked lethargic, no energy, and they got dominated. Then the inside 50s got dominated, and West Coast were just uncompetitive.
Yeah. Now, we're not talking about the game specifically now because it was about coaches. And so my point is that Adam Simpson's a good coach. There's no question about that. But any coach in professional sport that has his numbers in the past 2 years prior to this one, I don't think would have survived, irrespective of the injuries. And I'm just stating facts. There's not too many professional coaches that keep their job. And I think Adam Simpson thought he was gone as well at the end of last year.
Yep.
So he's got another year to run after this season. My point is that absolutely, if they'd won 5 games and been competitive in those other matches against Adelaide, blown out by almost 100 points, yesterday felt like a 100-point loss. I think there's real question marks as to whether he'll go on in 2025. If you don't think that, then I'm coming from a different position. I think they need to not just win some more matches between now and the end of the home and away season. They need to be a lot more competitive. That was a passive performance yesterday.
Yeah, I always reflect on, like I talk about, is it the players or the coaches? And I often err to players, don't I? I often put it back on the players.
It's both. I mean, there's elements of responsibility for both.
Look, I don't think I can argue with you. Adam Simpson, contract or not, he's going to be under the pump. And so are those other guys too. Ken Hinkley was crying after the game. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, you used him on radio. And Ken's a good bloke. I mean, Adam Simpson's a really good bloke. There's no question about it. But Hinkley's been at the club for 12. A decade or more. No flag. Adam Simpson has the premiership, and it's hard for you because you enjoyed your finest moment on a footy field with him in charge. So
almost didn't because he didn't pick me.
Yeah, but he did.
So yeah, but I would have every right to tee off on anyone. Yeah,
but you also have every right to defend him, and I get it. So I totally understand. You always try to be impartial. Adam Simpson knows it. If they don't win, say, 5 games for the year, and they get pumped from here on in a derby and then later in the season, Don Pyke's obliged to sit down and see what the alternatives are for the following 12 months, because there's a big difference in terms of what you're paying out for 1 year as opposed to 2. Does Dean Cox come back into the equation as a possibility? You'd make that phone call again to him. Does an assistant coach bob up? There's lots of questions that'll be asked.
Don would have Dean's number, given they work together at the Sydney Swans.
I think you'd be able to get hold of him, yeah.
Well, there'd been a lot of talk that Dean Cox has got the Sydney job after John Longmire. But are they moving him on anytime soon?
If the Horse wins a premiership this year, which is not beyond the realms,
ride into the sunset?
Why is he going to jump? I haven't seen a coach. You tell me an AFL coach that has won a flag and says, righto, I'm out of here. See you later.
I'll tell you a few players.
Yes.
That happens with players. It doesn't happen with coaches, though, because it's a career job, right?
I got told yesterday, it's all just speculation, that potentially Coxie was given the chance to come over here and be mentored for a season and then take over. He's essentially doing that already at the Swans.
Why would you?
But if you get offered the job holus bolus at the start of 2025, if that happened, I think Dean Cox would be obliged to look at that pretty seriously. Now, that either to be a sugar hit for the fans, because a lot of things have to go wrong for Simpson from here on in and continue to go wrong for him not to be coached next year. But if they win 4 games on the way home, which I don't see happening, then this conversation probably seems stupid.
I listened to talk back on the way home from the game, which I very rarely do, to be honest, Skeeter. It's the last thing in the world I want to listen to.
Talk footy, yeah.
Right, and I tuned into 6PR, and people were teeing off, and not at the players, which I was surprised at. It was at the coach. So people want blood, which I don't think was the case last week. I don't know. Was it?
Well, they've beaten by North Melbourne. I was surprised there wasn't more noise after the North Melbourne loss, but there wasn't because they went on a bye, which was quite, fortuitous.
Yes.
Now, I just think, if you're talking coaches, I think Ross Lyon is safe. I think Ken Hinkley, I still think, I'm not convinced about Port, and they have to be making, I think, close to a grand final for him to be secure moving forward. That's just my opinion. I think Adam Simpson, well, put it this way, if they play like that for the rest of the season, which you'd think they wouldn't, I think they'd find a way to at least be competitive in some of the matches. Not sure what their run. They've got Melbourne this week at the G, but even that seems a bridge too far at the moment.
Will Schofield, Mark Reddings, show the FootyCast. Sydney v Fremantle. Let's get into some positive news, Skeet, off the top. I tell you what, watch this game start to finish. Fucking picked him on the show of the FootyCast. Gave him my roughie of the week. They bloody did it. The Dockers, they're back. Wharfie time. Here we go. They knock off Sydney at the SCG. I bloody knew they would do it. I told you, Skeeter. You should have bloody listened to me.
I'm very happy they won. I took them at the line. I had a little investment on them at 27 points plus. You're always going to get, I thought, the chocolates there. No, good stuff. Look, having spoken to Hammer yesterday, spoke to Andy, so it's all third hand, but he said the key was to start well and be with them and just be around the place around half time. They did more than that. They did more than that. They obviously jumped and they kicked accurately, and that's the key. It's funny, they
kicked 7 goals in the first quarter.
Yeah, so that really set the platform, and there's some nervous moments in the last quarter, obviously, but that was a mature performance, really was. And now I'll be honest, I was calling a lot of waffle footy as this was happening, so I didn't see how the Swans fought their way back into the game. But what I do know is that some of the players like Sarong's just having another super year. He was outstanding, and that Fife's role changed to some degree. Now we've been asking for a while, what do you do with him in this midfield mix? Have they found the way for him forward with what he did with Isaac Heaney?
Well, maybe. So I've got you covered here, Skeet. I'll watch this one door to door. Look, Fifey played a more defensive role. Hayden Young was, I would say, sort of, it didn't look like he was in his normal rotation. He certainly didn't have as much impact on the game as he usually does, but Sarong and Brayshaw was sort of tasked, I think, with just taking the game on. Brayshaw looked to get forward of stoppage quite a lot and attack the game. I mean, that's what Sydney does. And so we were very critical of Fremantle after the Bulldogs game of taking the midfield on, but that's pretty much what they did here. Yes, they played a defensive mid in Fife on Heaney. It looked to me like Sharp went pretty close to Goulden, which we spoke about on the Thursday, Skeeter. He had 25 touches, Sharp, but Goulden was very quiet. So whether it was Sharp or whether it was a half forward, they paid him a fair bit of attention. He ended up with 21 touches, Goulden, but he had 13 in the last quarter. Like, he'd had 10 touches up to three-quarter time. So coming off 40 against GWS, they limited Goulden's influence on the game. Isaac Heaney didn't have his normal influence, 20 touches. Chad Warner was not unsighted, but not his usual output in the game. He had 23 touches. So the midfield won that battle. They started bloody well, as you said, 7 goals. Josh Tracy, you can't sing his praises enough, what he's doing. Like Fremantle have been dying for a proper forward line since Matt Pavlich left the footy club.
And he, I think you might have been with me watching a game during Gather Round. We might have even been at Crown where we were calling the game. We weren't just sitting there on the shelters, but we were watching, and he dropped a few marks, I think, in one of those games. But then he started clunking them. Yeah. And I think from that moment, whether it's his self-confidence, whatever, but to Tracy, now, I'm not going to say he's going to be the next Matthew Pavlich per se, but he gives them that dynamic that is really important.
Well, okay, so no one's going to be the next Matt Pavlich, unfortunately. Like, all Australian at all positions, and just a superstar. We probably never see across the competition what he was able to do. But what Josh Tracy does is, like, he allows Jai Amos to be the hit up forward, which is
his go.
Yeah, he's not the big pack marker. Like, he can do it, Jai Amos, but you want him on the lead, hitting up at the foot. With his forward craft, you want Luke Jackson roaming around doing whatever the fuck he wants. You honestly, you can't have Luke Jackson playing a structural role. He's too loose, and you need him loose. Like, you need him as the wild card.
It's unpredictable for the defence of an opposition side.
He needs to be able to go deep and take a hanger. He needs to go up the ground and take a hanger. He needs to be running around like a midfielder, like doing whatever he wants. And if you don't have the structure, like a Tracy who can get you out and take a big mark on the wing, settle everyone down. Like, he did it 3 or 4 times all weekend. I couldn't be more. I'm not proud, but like, happy to see how he's going.
I was just looking at some of the social media from the weekend, and obviously Docker supporters. That last few minutes, in brief, and sort of vision at the Coburn Lecture Theatre where the sirens, or all the ladies, the mums.
That?
So they call the sirens. Yeah. So they're really good supporters, terrific ladies. They're knowledgeable. They're passionate. And, of course, when McDonald's kick doesn't hit the target, they've erupted and music went off in the system. So I can imagine that happening around households, and we've seen it on social media of Dockers fans watching on the TV. It was enormous. And having said that, Logan McDonald, that was a tough kick. You're going to kick that once every. And the arc of the SCG, by the way, isn't a true 50, is it?
Let's just break down this last moment because I think it's quite interesting. A quick shout out to the back line of Freo as well. Like before I get into that, Luke Ryan played a really sacrificial role. He still had his touches actually, but what he was able to do. Josh Draper was massive. Kept Marty to nothing. Really good, and they subbed Hugh Davies off halfway through the third, and they went a little smaller, but their back line held up really well.
And that's good. That's without Alex Pearce and Brendan Cox, who, look, I haven't seen the numbers from the waffle from him, but if he is able to, well, he'll come into the mix this week against Richmond, I suspect, or maybe they'll give him one more, but if they can, obviously, the more footy they can get into him with a hamstring and have him come back, and obviously Pearce is right, hopefully within a month, that gives them... Yeah, they're looking pretty sound.
Make sure you tune into our YouTube channel because I'll break this last 2 minutes down. But pretty much, you asked what got Sydney back into the game. It was Nick Blakey, the lizard. Yep. Right? He was running around like an absolute frill neck, mate. Like 32 touches, a goal, 10 marks. He was unbelievable. So I heard you run the Sarong 3 votes, which he was good, but Blakey gets 3 votes in this.
Oh, does he?
Oh, absolutely, mate. Like... But they lost by a point, right? So it wasn't like Fremantle won by 10 goals.
Yep.
Blakey was unbelievable. And the last play of this game, you just knew he was going to be involved. In the last quarter, he was just incredible. He roved a boundary throw-in with 30 seconds left, came right through the back of the stoppage.
Hits McDonald.
Look, you say it's a hard kick, and it is, right? But I reckon you saw him play waffle foot. He's got a big kick on him, Logan McDonald.
He's very good set shot for Perth. So
less about the set shot, but he's got a long kick on him. So when you're that far out, you need to kick through the ball. Like you know you have to get onto it to be able to kick. He was kicking probably 51, 52 metres. Like the amount of the mark was
range.
Inside, absolutely, and I think the 50-metre arc at their CG, I think it's about 47.
Yeah, it feels a bit skinnier.
So he goes back. I'm watching that at home. I'm telling the kids to shut up. I'm maybe a little investment on it as well, and I'm watching along. And there's no other result other than a draw or a loss. Like I'm just thinking, there was no part of me thinking, well, what happened, not making the distance. So he's gone back. A lot of pressure on him. A really interesting part of this, he had a conversation with the umpire with 5 seconds to go. He's back at the top of his mark and he looks at the umpire and he goes, can I run around on my mark? And the umpire goes, well, if the siren goes, and then the umpire almost said like the siren's about to go or something. And then so he sort of just stopped, waited, siren went. And then they had about a 15-second conversation about the rules of the game or what he could or couldn't do.
This is post-match?
But this is before he kicks the ball. If you watch it,
couldn't mean 15 seconds. Was it that long?
Mate, it wasn't a one-liner, hey, you can't run off. It was
a full discussion.
If you do this, Logan, and you run out here.
The time had been stopped, obviously.
The game was over. Or the siren had gone.
Oh, so this is post-match.
It's not post-match because he's got the ball in his hands. But
but so he hasn't kicked the ball.
Yeah, correct.
But they're still discussing.
Siren's gone, and the umpires come back over to him and is trying to explain the rules of the game to Logan McDonald. I was absolutely flabbergasted.
So how did McDonald not know that he had one option, and that's to not move off the line?
I don't think you see that many instances in our game. Hey, Paddy Cripps, you can't go in and tackle this player here, and here's your prior.
But they do quite often, umpires do come in, say a kick on the siren.
Yes, but it wasn't a one-liner, mate. It wasn't a, hey, you can't move off the line. You watch it. I'm right.
No, I'm
always
very rare that you don't.
And he's gone back and he's shaped the kick. So I wonder how much that conversation had to do with it because he was telling him he can't run off and he has to stay in line and your natural arc can't do this and can't do that. He should have just gone back and kicked the shit out of it.
Yeah.
And didn't.
Bottom line is,
Freo win.
Top 4 is now, I'm not saying it's Dockers to lose or to give up, but they're in that position of third, and I've got Brendan Cox, I mentioned him, 18 touches at the weekend. So injury-wise, apart from Pearce, I'm trying to rack my brain. Michael Walters is still on the sidelines, but a skinny injury list, if that's the case, that's a nice launching pad for the time when you need healthy bodies.
Playing good footy at the right time, Freo. They need to hold this now.
1-3.
Yeah.
Richmond this week. So
that's a win.
Yeah, well, so was the Derby. I thought going into that. So, but you're right. You need to not just look in the rear view mirror.
That's a win. Richmond are no good. Fremantle just knocked off Sydney.
Subbed off yesterday. So yeah, I think you're probably right. But yeah,
you can't at all go into that game. Like, they're going to be $20 underdogs, Richmond.
Of course. Okay. But you just got to make sure if you're, because I can tell you, Docker supporters are saying, okay, we had that big win. They've had a couple of moments this year. But you're right, at home, very
good from Freo. Very good, top four, and let's hope they stay there. If you're a Freo fan, Wharfie time merch over at backchatstudios.com.au. Let's get in the West Coast Hawthorn game. Break it down a little bit more, Skeeter. We both called this one. This is the last game of the weekend. You could see what happened was going to happen within 5 minutes of the game starting, I reckon. They rolled them out of the middle. Their centre-bounce clearance work was terrible, West Coast. Hawthorn's was elite. I thought if I start positively on Hawthorn, the way they were organised, the way they were structured, they're on the same page, clean hands, quick hands in tight. Like, they look like a well-drilled machine.
Extraordinary to think. I'm not sure where they are now, but they were 13th on the ladder, I think, this week. But to see the footy that they are playing, that to me could win them a final, that top style of footy.
Yep.
No questions about that.
Hard, intense,
and you know
pressure.
It's speaking to Mark Stone, who was with us on radio, he was coaching at Brisbane last year. He said the reason that Hawthorn always trouble Brisbane because of their leg power, their running power. And that is something that yesterday, just watching the gut running and their ability, their work rate, their appetite for the contest, so many elements. A bloke like Weddle coming out of defence, they just looked getting across the ground better than the Eagles. And obviously they got numbers around the footy. I was just so impressed. And you know what, Scully, there's so many names in that group that, you know, McDonald, 31, had to have a second look at some of these guys who some of us haven't seen a lot of, or certainly haven't known what they could do. And I mean, James Sicily, his ability to bite off those inside balls with the kick, their kicking skills were terrific. They did a lot right yesterday, and no wonder they're on a run. They've won 5 in a row now.
So that's the positives for Hawthorn. The negatives for West Coast, I think without Jeremy McGovern and Tom Barras is a 100-point loss.
100% agree.
So why do they look like the only blokes having a crack?
Well, they're the only blokes with... I'm not sure the only blokes having a crack. I don't know. I can't. You know what? If I'm giving the Eagles some sort of chop out, it's that Harley Reid hadn't played for a month. Tim Kelly hadn't played for a while because of injury, so they were, underdone. Oscar Allen. We know the Elliott situation and the traumatic situation he's been going through. It's not a pass to say that's why, but I just felt like they were bullied. They were outplayed. It's arguably their worst performance of the year.
I don't think arguably that's the worst performance of the year, Skater. And they're too tall.
They had a couple.
If they play like that, they're too tall, right? They're too tall in front of the footy.
But that's a question mark.
If you don't get any supply and you got 5 tall forwards, what do you think's going to happen?
So who misses out then? If you look at it, I mean, here's the big conundrum. Is it a case of, given that Allen and Waterman are locks,
you're not dropping them?
No, exactly. Then it comes down to, is it Jack Darling or Bailey Williams?
Bailey Williams can play on the rock because old mate Flynn's on the
But in an ideal situation, if you've got the choice, it's coming down to having to either send Bailey back to the waffle, which I don't think's the right move.
No.
Or Jack has to make way.
Mate, I've played my entire career getting dropped and back in the side because of team balance, height issues. So why is Jack Darling immune to that? I don't see the romance in it. Premiership team on mine, good mate. That's how footy goes. So, look, he's probably going to keep his spot because Bailey Williams. But like that, I said it 2 weeks ago. They're too tall in front of the footy.
Well, they had to play Ryan Marrick on the wing last week, the other week.
So why are they stuffing him? Like they are just completely butchering his development. Ryan Marrick, he comes in, he plays in the sub. So bloody hard to impact a game when you're a sub. Like you come on, everyone's bloody into it, and then you're like a deer in the headlights. Yeah. So he comes on, you got Hutchinson, who they rate highly. Spoke to people at the club. I spoke to Simo, and he rates him highly. His work rate and fitness levels are Jamie Cripps-like, who is the best at the club.
Is that right?
So play the bloke. What are you bloody dropping him for?
He's a mid-season draftee. You're not playing finals.
Just play him. I'm not going to say play the kids because they don't need to.
Don't have any. But apart from Clay Hall,
they don't need to play the kids. They need to play the future.
Well, that's Clay Hall. Yeah. What he must be missing an element to his game.
Well, he wasn't in the preseason. I can guarantee you he was in round one. He was playing round one before the Elliott Yeo injury. So whether they've learnt something over the... But you're not going to learn anything in the waffle in that regard. So he's played. I think he's done his time. You probably need to get him in. They're going to have to make changes to... So we spoke about off the top Adam Simpson being under pressure. That playing group's under pressure from mine, Skeeter. You can't have Liam Duggan, Jeremy McGovern and Tom Barras being your three guys that look like they're having a crack and the rest of them running around like headless chooks. You can't have that. You can't rock up at AFL level and be like that. And that's what it was. There was no contributors. None.
Are they playing for their coach?
No.
So that again, I don't know if they are or not.
Of course they're not. No.
Well, then that says a lot. If that's the answer you believe, and
well, do that look like they're playing for? What do they look like?
But 6 weeks ago, whenever they won their last game,
was that for their coach? Was it?
No, I'm saying, does it look like they're playing for the coach? You said no.
No.
Do
you agree with me?
I do.
Yeah. So, look, it's interesting what one game can do, right? So,
and maybe we're unfair. Maybe we're expecting too much in one match because they had their full complement.
Yeah.
But I think we're not alone in that space.
No, I would agree. Let's move on. You got anything else to add in that one, Scooter?
No, it's just
taking enough heads off.
Yeah.
Well, it's not good, mate. Like you don't want to come in here and talk like this. I
much prefer the Dockers conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the Eagles, I just was really disappointed. And let me just preface that I thought Hawthorn were very enjoyable to watch. They're probably the most exciting team to watch in the comp. At the moment. Arguably alongside Carlton, whoever you think's playing well. I think Hawthorn, they're playing Geelong this week. They're outsiders there. I think they can
in Geelong.
In Geelong, yeah. But they're a good side, and Sam Mitchell deserves. I know you've rated him so highly that he's got this team playing with a lot of belief.
If we can finish off on a positive note, you want to talk about coaches. Like I saw Sam Mitchell standing in the circle with his team. You don't see that very often. You see coaches out the back and they want to
trying to be
to arm in arm with them. You see him coaching from the bench.
I've seen him go to players after games, and I know the camera's on him, but he doesn't know that. It's a genuine... Yeah. And I know a lot of coaches have that love for their players. In fact, all of them probably do, but it looks like it's quite a mutual...
he's different, and I've said that. He's the best coach I've ever played under, and that's... Any level of footy, and I've played under a lot of coaches, Skater. I've spent some time with some different teams. He's the best coach, and with that list he has, I said this last week. Got some feedback over the weekend on this one. How's the spine at Hawthorn looking now, Scully? How's the list looking? Your spine's still worse than West Coast. Your list is still worse than West Coast Hawthorn, and you can put that out. Like imagine if they start getting a high quality list in. Maybe they go and acquire a couple of really good players. Mitch Lewis didn't play, Skeeter.
Yeah, so there's the automatic.
This is a compliment to how well Hawthorn's going. Their list is no good. They're dominating teams. How bloody good. That's so exciting.
They're blue collar, they're workmanlike. You mentioned Lewis coming back, and Deere was he did his job yesterday, but the ceiling for them is it mightn't happen this year where they break down the door, but they're coming.
Kelsher was a little quieter than he probably would have hoped. So
I know,
just a one handball.
Just the one, no.
Yeah, one handball.
Yeah, one handball. But
he's coming up. I like it.
Yeah, fix me up there.
Will Schofield, Mark Redding, show at FootyCast.
Thought he had more than that.
I saw him the reason I knew because I thought he was going well too, and he got subbed, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." I looked at his stats. He had that one hand.
I called his name a few times. Maybe that was because he was outmarked. I don't know. Anyway, the son of Paul Deere.
Someone would have been listening and gone, "Hang on a second, Skater." So I'm looking after you, Skater.
Oh, you are, yeah.
Always looking after you. Brisbane, Melbourne, Friday night. Let's whip through the game, Skeeter. This is a little while away now. Brisbane get the job done in a close affair, wasn't it? They kicked inaccurately both sides here, 11-20 to 11-15. And it was a game Brisbane really had to win. It was a comeback victory in the end. It was a really good win against Melbourne, who we completely wrote off.
Absolutely. And the Demons, I thought, they had the game controlled. Last quarter, though, it was just a wave to the left of screen as you're watching on TV.
Yes.
And as it turns out, they probably should have. They wasted some chances in the last quarter, let alone before that. The Lions. I mean, the hand pass by Hipwood, which misses the target. Charlie Cameron misses a very comfortable-looking mark just outside the square. So, look, I guess the problem with Brisbane is they, on many times year have allowed opposition sides to get multiple goals in a row in matches.
Swing,
so they still haven't counted that. I know Chris Fagan's just pressing the button, go, go, go at all times, but it leaves them vulnerable if on that, like on Friday night, they can look also a bit skinny down back.
I heard Charlie Cameron interviewed after this one, really like a really good interview, an honest interview, and someone, whoever was interviewing him, asked, what have you changed? Like what, they're winning games of footy, they look like a different side. He spoke about, and maybe it was just because he was a forward, but he spoke about they went through all the stats, all the rankings, and they were ranking very highly in a lot of them. And one of their biggest ones was conversion and not taking what they were doing up the ground and converting it into goals, and whether that be goal kicking or actually taking your chances and connecting inside 50. But he sort of spoke about they haven't changed a lot from a ball movement, from a footy perspective. They're just in front of, probably, forward 70, connecting better and then kicking more goals. I mean, they didn't do that on the weekend. They kicked 20 behinds, but maybe this Brisbane Lions team have starting to click a little bit without changing too much. Really impressive. Dunkley, very, very good. 32 touches, 10 tackles, 12 marks. He's having a great year, especially when Lachie Neale sort of, gets tagged every second week as well.
Absolutely. And I think when it comes to some of those metrics, we talked about the pressure gauge last week, and we're not quite sure at times what it all means, but a lot of the metrics for Brisbane, which those inside the AFL regard highly, Brisbane are number one.
Yeah.
Even though the lattice suggests where they are, it gives maybe a false impression, but they are number one in a lot of categories. So that's why if they can continue, they're in the 8 now, I think, if they can find a way to...
Yep, 8th.
But the only problem is, given what they've done in the first half of the year, the margin for error becomes quite limited. So, they've got to be almost perfect to get into a position to challenge from here.
They're a game out of third.
I know, but they still have to be... They cannot afford to... unlike Sydney, who have got that leverage, Brisbane doesn't. But you keep winning and your position can't decline.
Game out of 14th, game out of third.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's one of those years. Well, I don't think we've seen it like this for a long time. North Melbourne v Western Bulldogs. This one, a bit of a whatever game. I mean, not as high scoring I probably would have expected. Bulldogs, I kept looking at this one, and Bulldogs had a pretty substantial lead, and North looked like they closed the gap a little bit. Maybe the scoreboard doesn't reflect how this one went. Bontempelli for the third week in a row went into this one with a huge injury cloud. He had 35 and 3 behind, so he's had a pretty quiet game by his standards. Look, North Melbourne, they come over here and beat West Coast, and I think you said it right. There wasn't that much fuss made about that, but I don't think North Melbourne are very good, so that was a dreadful loss by West Coast.
Yeah, look, I think North Melbourne's last month bears some credit. Getting to what they did against the Eagles, against Melbourne, just falling short after a comeback there. They led by 54 against Collingwood. They get beaten here by 17. George Wardlaw, I mean, his absence is significant for the Kangaroos. I think concussion was the call with him. So I think, put it this way, if I'm a North Melbourne supporter, I'm feeling a bit more comfortable about life than I am if I'm an Eagles supporter at the moment.
That's interesting.
Oh, at the moment, of course you are.
Yeah, which we wouldn't have said that.
No, but just it's competitiveness, and that's Clarko's got them moving. They still don't know how to win, but that will come. And the Bulldogs,
Rory Lobb played in the back line.
Did he really?
Rory Lobb, the backman. Yeah, Rory Lobb played in the back line.
Well, they're trying to make the quartet work, aren't they? Because Darcy's going to play, Norton's going to play, Jamari Ugle-Hagan.
Yeah, he's not getting a game. So you can either play in the back line or you go play in the VFL. I know what I'd be choosing. I'd turn myself into one of the best backmen ever seen.
Wouldn't it be crazy if he ends up being and they need some spine down the back. That's why they've chased Tom Barras.
Okay, exactly right. But he has the physical ability to. He's quick. He can run and jump.
Strong.
He's strong. He knows what to do in a contested marking situation. All those ticks every box to be a centre-half back. So why not? Like I like the move. I don't know why they haven't done it earlier, but he goes and plays a pretty good game from all reports.
Yeah, if he can stay off TikTok, his stocks will rise, I reckon, Scully.
When are you starting a TikTok account?
No, I'm going to get onto Instagram and learn how to use it this week.
I would like you to start a TikTok account. That would be my personal request.
I'll be like that Hawk Took girl. There's a girl in there. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about? You do that, yeah?
We're getting a bit of Travis Kelce in this.
Well, I did see it. I quite thought
The what girl?
Is it Hock 2 or Tour Hock? Hock 2.
Tuok. You sound like you're an Islander.
But she's in Nashville. I'm going to Nashville this year. And you know...
You're going to Nashville this year?
Yeah.
You might be trying to find her, I reckon, Skeeter.
No, well, I know what it's all about. As in what, but she's
Is
quite
that right?
funny.
Is that right, Skeeter?
But is she big on TikTok at the moment or Instagram?
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. She's going viral. I know that much.
Thank you, Skeeter. I'll tell you what will be going viral very soon after this thing's finished, Skeeter. The Tuok girl.
Well, how do you say it then?
Oh, I don't know, Skeeter.
Oh.
Well, Hock Tour.
Hock Tour. There you go. That's better.
Gold Coast v Collingwood. We'll just wrap this
I don't know where I
podcast
came
up.
with that. I've seen it on the social media a bit.
Oh, bloody hell, that's good. Gold Coast v Collingwood, People's First Stadium. Big win here, Skeeter.
Oh, the Gold Coast Suns. They are lions at home and lambs away. But you sort of, even though I tipped Collingwood here, you could tell after the first half an hour that this is going to be a typical Gold Coast performance at home.
It was going to be a typical, to be honest, a typical Collingwood performance. They're 33 points down at the end of the third quarter, just before it. And I was watching. I bet they're going to
get within close.
They're going to come back here, mate. They got in front. They hit the lead with 5 minutes to go, and that was probably the best thing that could have happened to Gold Coast because they completely stopped in the last quarter, doing what had got them to 33 points in front. They were aggressive. They were attacking. They moved the ball with ease, Gold Coast. Like, they were just transitioning so well, and Anderson's one of those guys that I was really impressed with. They looked like a great footy side. Then three-quarter time came, and they thought, well, let's park the bus, let's start moving, so let's chip around. That's not who they are.
And they also know that Collingwood is a team, we've seen it over the last couple of years and against North Melbourne last 2 weeks ago, that they are a team that you just know are never done. And so there's this mindset thing. I saw it in the Waffle on Saturday with East Perth just doing the same thing, parking the bus, and South Fremantle, who were down by 40, got within a kick. How does that permeate through the playing group? Because if you look at the scoreboard...
It's human nature.
Yeah, isn't it? Oh, it must be.
Yeah, it's human nature from both ends, right? Collingwood is like, let's just roll the dice. And Gold Coast, because they're rolling the dice, you kind of think, well, we can't attack as well because if we attack, they're just going to score. Like, they're all they're worried about is scoring. They're not going to defend at all. But sometimes, like, the illogical thing to do is, okay, maybe we should roll the dice. But you don't ever see that.
Don't need, because that's it's an automatic response to say, well, that's not the way to go. But look, I thought, without De Goey and Dacos and the goals they kicked, top level.
Damien Hardwick, I don't know if you heard his comments after the game, but he said, like, he spoke to Clarko during the week, and when Collingwood get in that mode, go and tag Nick Dacos and go and tag De Goey. And we couldn't do it. Yeah. Like, couldn't stop them. Like, literally could not stop them.
Conversely, though, Craig McRae, I think he's quite honest by saying, look, you can't knock the culture or the character of the group, but there's a recurring theme. And even the best fighter or best athlete, if you're giving up leads in footy, for instance, of that nature, they've done it for a little while now.
Oh, mate, three years.
And big margins. It's digging into your reserves significantly to try and come up with that every second week. And I think that's his concern, is that they're unable to go with sides, early and sometimes up to three-quarter time, but then they, find a way to get back in it.
We don't see them put sides up. We don't see them win by 10 goals every week.
Very rarely. I can't think of the last time, and I'll probably be proven wrong. I think I might have thrashed Port Adelaide early this year from memory at the G, but you're right. They're a team that's like in horse racing, Scully, if there's some horses that just win by a half length or they just know how to get to the finishing line first, and that's a bit like Collingwood.
You're right. You can't knock it because they win and won a flag doing it. It's doing the same thing.
Yeah, but it's not an easy way to win, is it?
It wouldn't be easy to watch being a Collingwood fan. Like, you'd be having heart attacks as well. They did win that one against Port, 53 points. 43. 43.
Yeah, well, still, that's a margin. You thought my memory was cooked. You thought it was Joe Biden.
You do remind me of Joe Biden sometimes. You got a bit of Joe Biden in you.
I went and watched that.
Joe Biden look like a little bit of a Joe Biden look-alike. You are a little bit.
Well, you behave like Trump, so stick it up your ass.
My golf swing's better than yours, Skeeter.
Yeah.
Oh,
how sad was that?
Godfather. Good win from Gold Coast. You can't knock it home. We know what they do at home.
They got North away, so this is the ultimate. You must get this job done.
Yeah,
and it's not going to be that easy because
they need to play finals this year. Gold Coast. There may not be the fan and media pressure because no one really cares that much because it's like everyone's third team, the Gold Coast Suns. But there should be pressure on them to make finals with the list they have. the players they have, gone and got the coach, everything's there. Like, they need to go and play finals. They can't lose at home at the moment. So you need to knock off a few away from home and you play finals.
Exactly. 2 games in Darwin a year. If you win even 8 of your 11 games or 7 of your 10 games at home, and you're right, like the Eagles did in 18, I remember it well. I'm not sure how many. You had a good success rate away from home.
Yep.
Collingwood did it last year. They've done it for a while. Gets the job done away from home, and life becomes a lot easier.
Did Collingwood play away from home? That was probably the first away game I've ever seen Collingwood play at People's First Stadium. Adelaide v GWS. My boys, tell you what, Skeeter.
In trouble.
Spoke to a few around the footy club at GWS the last day or so, and they don't quite know what's going on. The season's just slipping away for the Gold Coast. For the GWS Giants.
6 losses in their past 8 games, and for the first time this year, they're outside the 8. Bear in mind, they against Adelaide, they lost contested ball by 19, clearances by 8. And just you look at what they're doing forward of the ball. Since round 8, they've kicked 69, 62, 43, 78 points in a win, 79, 73 in a win, and 75 and 78.
Wow.
So those numbers are. You're not going to win too many. I know it's low-scoring games in AFL, but they're not going to win you a lot of games, are they? Consistently against good sides.
And then the tsunami that is based. It's more defence than attack. We don't see that. Adelaide go close to kicking 100 points here, so they're not putting defensive side of pressure on, and then they can't score off the back of it. So I don't know what levers Adam Kingsley has to pull here, because the only one I can think of, and it seems very vanilla, is to get Toby Green on ball and get him involved more, because he, for mine, is still their best player. So he's had 16 and kicked 3. I think they'd be worried about if they take him away, he doesn't kick his 3 goals.
But they're bereft. I mean, Jesse Hogan's obviously been their key forward, but they're just not kicking a score. Now, I haven't looked at the inside 50 numbers and whether they're getting that supply, but it's a shadow of the side that we saw.
They had the same amount of inside 50s as Adelaide.
Wow.
54 each.
Yeah. And look, Adelaide, from their perspective, I was out ranking. He's clearly, for mine, there. Alongside Jordan Dawson, if he's creative and hitting the scoreboard, they're a different side. A bit of a shades of what we saw from Adelaide at their best. And you mentioned this many times, Scully, that they might have gone away from their DNA.
They're one wood, mate.
Which is
attack,
kicking a score and then make the other side defend that.
That's what Pikey used to do with Adelaide. They used to just try to score more than the other side. Like
Malcolm Blight did it with Geelong as you remember, back in the 90s, just get it down to Ablett and Cohen, and let's see if they kick 20, we'll kick 21.
Very good. Geelong v Essendon, the MCG. This was an interesting one, Skeeter. I called this game.
I was with you.
Essendon.
Yeah, I was with you.
You were too. That's right. You rolled in 1 minute before the game after I did a 2.5 hour preview. Where were you, by the way?
I was calling the waffle, so I wasn't getting a cashy like you've done previously.
Well, you don't get paid to call the waffle.
Well, no, it's not a cashy. It's an invoice.
You got to pay tax on your bloody third job.
Yeah, so just keep an eye on that.
Okay, Geelong, Essendon. Look, before we get into the umpiring with this one, which we'll speak about, Essendon were poor. Essendon were poor. They're really bad. I spent the whole last quarter reeling off who doesn't have it at Essendon skate. So what is it? It is looking at your man and being able to beat him one-on-one. It is being clean when it's wet weather, not losing your feet, not being fumbly. It is being able to communicate with your teammates. It is, knowing your structure, but if it's not about structure, you need to go and balance up the contest. You need to go and do something. You go and do it. All these things, they're intangibles. They're things that you won't see on a stat sheet. And Essendon don't have enough players that have it.
And they don't have that killer instinct. I think that was another term you've thrown out there, which is probably right. I mean,
a few of them do. Like their midfield does. Caldwell, Durham, Merritt. I like them.
Yeah, but that's
on the periphery, mate. They're just peanuts.
And to break it down in maybe simplistic terms, and not saying Geelong is one of the better sides, but they've been found out against any quality this year.
Correct. I think they've beaten one top 8 side. At the time of playing them,
so that's not a great sign for them. And look, to be fair, I thought the Cats are pretty good on the weekend.
Ollie Dempsey.
Ollie Dempsey has to be.
Him and Wardlaw are vying for the Rising Star.
Yeah, they have to be in contention. And Dangerfield gave them something coming back. I still don't think Cats will probably play finals.
Tom Stewart played as a midfielder the whole day, which was interesting. I don't think I don't think Cats play finals either, but I don't think the Bombers play finals. So
Yeah, you've got them out, haven't you?
Someone's got to play finals.
Umpiring has to be mentioned as well. Third quarter, there are a few decisions. Let's just put this out. Geelong deserved to win the game, no question about that. The better side, but there are a couple of decisions. You weren't happy with the rush behind free kick, which, again, trying to listen to what the umpires say and what other experts say. There's some debate as to whether that was a free kick or not.
Yeah. Well, what do they say?
Well, some are saying it was he had a time to dispose of the footy,
right? Which
is, the umpire deemed that. The one that I thought was a poor non-decision was the Draper chopping of the arms, which we saw yesterday at Optus Stadium. I think they have a look at these types of incidents. And there was even one where I think McGovern took a mark, got a 50-metre penalty. It was a bit similar to the end of the Geelong North game where the ball was socketed, went about 15 metres, and I reckon the umpires in the back of their mind thought, we've stuffed that up a couple of weeks ago. Well, mate, this is just my read on it. He gets the 50, kicks the goal. So I think sometimes those issues, when they're raised, it's just spikes the interest in the umpires the next day or the next week. And as a result, look, the umpiring was, a few questionable decisions, but the Bombers were no good.
The umpiring was god-awful in the third quarter. So let's not sugarcoat it. But that's not why they lost the game. So the coverage I've seen from fans and others is as if that's the
momentum change.
Oh, bullshit. Essendon were just terrible.
After half-time, they were poor.
They were poop, Skeeter.
And 250th game for Dyson Heppel. If that's how you're going to honour your champions, and shame on the Bombers.
Well, there you go. St Kilda v Port Adelaide. Skeet, I'm going to be honest, didn't see this one. But from all reports, and it's funny how St Kilda are involved in these most of the time, I've heard from multiple sources this is the worst game of football ever played.
Oh, it can't be.
No, worst ever.
Than St Kilda and Gold Coast?
Yeah, worst ever. No, this is the worst ever. Worst game of football ever played. Nathan Burke, the champion from St Kilda, I read his tweet. He said, I've seen a lot of footy over my life. That is the worst game of football I've ever seen in my life.
You know the one constant in the two games we've discussed? They involve Ross Lyons Saints. Why does he do this? He turned,
Why does he do this?
Why does he do this? I know he's trying to win the game, but up at the Gabba, they lost the match, but they kicked, almost 100 points. And then again,
60 to 62. I didn't see it, so I'm happy. I've saved myself 2 hours of my weekend.
More importantly, was Ken Hinkley. That was the huge relief for him being able.
Mate, he was
in tears with Sarah Jones.
Yep, he was. Which, look, it speaks a little bit about when we talk about coaches off the top, and mate, some people will probably listen to me and say, "Oh, yeah, you're defending Adam Simpson," but I do think that when you speak about people's jobs, you don't see this emotion side of it, right? So, like Ken Hinkley's been under the pump, mate, and he is a human being like you and I. It'd be like us getting on this podcast and talking about your performance on radio every day. Well, give you some feedback.
Don't worry, we do get some of that occasionally.
Yeah, but it's it's in the paper, and then your family.
Here's the answer. Here's the answer to that.
Don't do the job.
Don't take the job on.
Fair enough.
And he's done it for 10 years, and he's done a really good job.
Fair.
But the one issue that he hasn't got? He hasn't got a premiership, and that's what sport Adam Simpson the extra time, in my humble belief.
Yes.
That's been critical, and all these guys are given 110%. I'd make no bones about that, but it's a results-based business. And as a result, Hinkley at the time, and I still don't think Port are playing great footy, and I think they're vulnerable to any quality side, which St Kilda aren't. I mean, Rowan Marshall is an A grader. He's kicked three, and look, but
Sinclair good.
Wangan
Malira good, Steele good. That's about it.
Yeah,
you've been strong today.
Got
it. Yeah. I've enjoyed it. I think a lot of people will be listening and going, "Yep, Skeeter's right,"
including that girl from Nashville.
The who? Who is she?
Hawk 2. Is that right?
Oh my God. I just can't wait. Look
after me, Sco, please.
Oh, you'll be looked after. Absolutely. Always look after you. Richmond, Carlton to finish the weekend off. Paddy Cripps has played one of the all-time games here. 40 possessions, 13 clearances and a goal. Another Brownlow on the way for Paddy Cripps, I'm hearing.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure I should give away my my frothing moment, but I'll...
don't give away your frothed on.
Carlton, very good. They're very good. And that's what I'm going to say with the issue.
Oh, yeah. Sam Walsh is elite. He makes that midfield look... He's a point of difference for him. 26 and 2 goals. Nick Newman's back in business. But Richmond, we know... This is what I'm saying about Fremantle. Mate, Fremantle should win this by 10... At home.
They're bereft of players. I mean, Dusty's
15
unlikely
goal
to come.
win coming up for Freo.
We might have seen the last of Dusty in Perth for what it's worth as well. I mean, he might play next year.
Right.
He
So
might
he got
go to the Gold
subbed
Coast.
out, did he? Or
Subbed out, yep. Right. So, look, they're down on personnel. So let's forget about the Tigers because their season's cooked like a couple of others. But you're right. Nick Newman, Sam Walsh, the bloke I'm about to talk about, who is going really well. They've kicked a score, 20 goals 11. So that's, it was, to my understanding yesterday, was still a bit wet and slippery in Melbourne.
Will Schofield, Mark Redding's Shelter Footycast. All right, Skeeter, let's get into what we frothed on, Skeet. So ahead of Frothtown, which is going to be August 23 and 24 this year, we are doing what we frothed on Mondays coming up into that event. So a little bit of time to go and get your tickets. You can get them at froth.town. We've got plenty to give away over the next few weeks, Skeeter, but we will be doing this segment on Mondays where we talk about what we frothed on. It can be maybe some investments you made over the weekend, Skeeter. It can be players, it can be teams, it can be coaches, it can be moments. What did you froth on the weekend, Skeet?
Well, I think he can win his second Brownlow medal. You might have just had a tease.
A little thunder. Sorry.
Paddy Cripps, good player, great player. And if we're playing State of Origin, he's probably the captain of our team. Close to it.
So you think Paddy Cripps could go and win his second Brownlow medal?
Absolutely. I mean, just going through what I frothed on the weekend was his ability to basically own that match. 40 disposals, and the way he did it. I know Richmond are a poor side, but I think Paddy Cripps is a bona fide start. And there were some question marks about him winning the Brownlow in his first when he won his first Brownlow because of the suspension controversy. Yes. I'd love him to see him go on and win it this year, just to frank what has been a really good career.
What I like about that, Skate, is if you look at Sydney, right, which we know they've been the best side all year, you've got Heaney, you've got Goulden, you've got Warner. I don't think one of them's winning the Brownlow because of those. Like, it's going to be difficult for one of them to win it because they're going to be stealing votes off each other. Paddy Cripps, Walsh missed a chunk of the season though. Paddy Cripps getting votes there. I don't hate it.
And they're finishing top 4, you think? So that doesn't hurt your chances.
I don't hate it at all, Skeet. I like that. That's what you're frothing on. Skeet, I'm going to keep it Western Australia. I'm going to keep it in Western Australia. And it's certainly not in the West Coast game. I can tell you that right now. Josh Draper is who I frothed on the weekend. I'll tell you why, Skeet, right? He goes and gets dropped, right, for Hugh Davies. That's what happened. Omitted out of the side. Alex Pearce gets injured. So he's been out for 1 week. You've got to come back in. You've got to play a role against a Sydney side who are ravenous, right? They are 54 inside 50s.
They've got the Amati party ready to explode.
Late in the game. He stood up like an absolute champion. And to do that off the back of getting dropped, it's an emotional rollercoaster, mate. And I can speak of that very well. To come in, play his role. He got interviewed after the game. He just spoke about his teammates. He was humble. I just thought it was a really good game that probably sits him in the side now. Like, if they're bringing Brennan Cox in, I don't think you're dropping Josh Draper after that performance. He held up all day. And Marty did stuff all. He was on him for most of the day, and I bloody frothed it, Skate.
Yeah, well, wouldn't you? And good on you, Josh, because you had a couple of tough matches where the likes of Kerno, and this is just a learning experience for a young backman, where he held on a couple of times, gave away some free kicks. But, yeah, that's terrific for him. That self-belief factor will certainly grow from that. I think he's an old Trinity boy, which I'll stand corrected. But
I don't like that. I'm like Aquinas.
Well, we're all Catholics, just wear real ones and you're just pretend ones. Josh Draper, and you know what? I know he wears number 37, but he just moves at times a bit like Michael Johnson as well. I just feel there's a bit of him there. So you're frothing over number 37 at the Dockers.
Froth.town. You can get your tickets there. It'll be August 23 and 24. Shelter's going to have a big tent there, Skeeter. I'm sure there's a seat with your name on it. Just settle yourself in there for the day, and well, maybe for the weekend. We'll put you up the front with a microphone in front of your face and provide entertainment for the day. Will Schofield, Mark Reddings, Shelter Footycast. Okay, a couple of emails and comments here, Skeeter. I'm going to try and get through this one a little bit. Hi, guys. I have a question regarding the Mark of the Year and Goal of the Year for Skeeter and Sco on the Shelter Footycast. Yeah. So this is your exclusive.
We broke the story.
No, you broke the story.
Well, yeah, but it's all part of it. It's a we.
No, that's you, mate.
It's like pay-wise, we're together.
Okay, thank you very much. It would appear more likely than not that coaches are trying to get players to play the percentages and not take specky or mark on a player's shoulders or try a goal, which is a pure fluke. Some schools have said they want players not to take a specky for whatever reason. I can see that players are trying this less and less in games, and this is one of the iconic parts of our game and needs to be preserved. We should increase the money for the mark of the year and goal of the year. Nick Nananui won a year's supply of Wheat Bix for his mark.
He must be, how filthy must he be?
2012. He doesn't eat Wheat Bix and is on record saying he was expecting a car. The current prize is $10,000. And Skeeter, I think we've debunked this. I won't probably read on anymore. I think we've debunked this. This is confirmed.
Had you pre-read that before?
No, I hadn't, Skeeter. Don't stitch me up, please. The question to Skeeter and Scully is, right, after there's a fair bit of fluff in there. If the goal and mark of the year prize were increased to $200,000 for the win, would we see more players attempt a hanger or mark of the year?
If that was increased to $200,000, I would see ex-players like Will Schofield officially blow up, given that their salaries of a mark or goal of the year and some of the salaries that were paid to players going back only, so $200,000, no, they're getting 50 or 60 or whatever it is, 50 plus some virgin points. But, Marby Chol yesterday, he'd be probably mark of the round. Jamie Elliott, Bobby Hill, the fellow contenders, I think they're clubhouse leaders. In the goals, well, there's probably at 6, including Harley Reid and some other beauties during the course of the year.
So, Skeeter, this came into our email. Skeeter, you want to send us an email, footycast@backchatstudios.com.au. G'day, blokes. Dingo here. Also, Dino's mate. I don't know who Dino is. Dino's Dan's dad. Use this wherever you want, all right? Feel like you might have a bit of a field day with it. After talking about our interstate favoury with Dave Matthews last week, the GWS
and
Giants.
Mark Evans and the review that he's calling for, yep.
So Dingo went and rewatched some highlights across media over the last couple of decades, and this is what he came across, and he almost spewed his guts up. This is an ABC article, and there's the key quotes below. We are a little bit concerned in recent years. The non-Victorian clubs have definitely had a greater success, he said. This is from Football Operations Manager Adrian Anderson in 2007. We're interested to look at the structural differences between the Victorian clubs and Victorian competition underneath the AFL to see if there's any structural issues related to that. In recent years, we've clearly seen non-Victorian clubs as a whole underperform in comparison with interstate clubs. And it may be a cyclical issue, but what we're looking at is if there's any structural issues that might explain that, or perhaps the end result of the work we do is that there aren't. So that's 2007, of course, West Coast Sydney.
06 and 05.
Yes, correct.
And then before that,
Brisbane.
Port Adelaide, and prior to that, Brisbane for 3 in a row.
So maybe it is cyclical. I don't know. Since then, there has been 15 grand finals won by Vic clubs and 2 won by outside Vic clubs, Sydney and West Coast, up the bloody coasters. Football Operations Manager Adrian Anderson said this 2 months into the 2007 season. So since that statement, what have they changed? Because what you just said there, right, and then since then, 15 from Melbourne clubs, 2 from interstate. Dino wants to know when's the Royal Commission starting.
Oh, he's going for the conspiracy theory.
Well, old mate's come out and said this 2 months into the 2007 season and then suddenly clicked his fingers and 15 grand finals, the next 17 are won by Melbourne clubs, Skeeter.
That being said, I mean, just off the top of my head, 15, you were in the grand final but lost. Dockers obviously in the grand final, 13 and lost. Okay. Adelaide there in 17 and lost. So not like they're not getting to the grand final. As just 3 examples.
Yes, great. I might finish off. On this one, Skeeter. I'm not sure if this is going to go. I haven't read any of these. This is from Matthew Witham. Thanks, Matthew. G'day, Scoey. Yourself and Skeeter discussed on the Shelter FootyCast about the inconsistencies in the match review panel and whether it was turning people off. I think it is. I agree that the consistencies in the league are turning people off. Myself and my golf foursome, 1 Eagle, 1 Bomber and 2 Dockers. Sounds like a sick joke rolling in here. Yeah. And the Hock Tour girl.
It is International Joke Day, by the way.
Yeah, thank you very much. I heard you rolling out some of the worst I've ever heard on radio today. Have a group chat that used to be filled with optimism among football, but now we are so disenfranchised with the league that we are turning off. Whether it be inconsistencies in umpiring, match review, the concussion issues, the CEO constantly burying his head in the sand, a stupid draft system that includes so many concessions, 29 first-round picks in an 18-team competition, and a complete lack of recognition of bias towards a certain amount of Victorian teams. I once watched almost every game each weekend rigorously, but now I am lucky to watch the West Coast game, if at all. I may just be getting old and grumpy, but I am switching off. The common theme in the group chat is best sport, worst league.
Oh, well, that's a long email, and I switched off as well halfway through it, but I get the gist of it.
He says that, mate, as I said, there's an undercurrent of people turning off footy.
Well, there were 49,000 fans yesterday at the game. I'm not sure
I reckon there was about 15 with 20 minutes to go on that one.
Yeah, probably. But I don't know. We just saw 90,000 see Dusty play a home and away game recently. I don't know. I'm not sure what the numbers are. I put it this way. I believe that the numbers at games this year will be, I think we've had some record rounds per se. Whether it's a spectacle that is enjoyable to watch TV-wise, what I will say is the TV numbers are down across the board. I mean, I'm not sure what Fox does, but
that would be turning off, I think.
Yeah, seven struggling here. Why would you when there's an Eagles defeat like we saw yesterday? It's human nature. Why will you just sit and watch it? So I think the TV numbers, in fact, across the board are down for whatever reason. Now, whether it's they're going to K or Fox, or whether people aren't watching the game because they simply don't enjoy the spectacle. Yeah, it's a decent point. I'm not sure it's going to change anytime soon, though.
Podcast numbers are looking up, though, Skeet. So we love all of our audience listening in. If you've got some friends, tell them to listen to the show, the FootyCast. We'll sort you out. Skeet, that's pretty much us finishing up for the show. FootyCast at backchatstudios.com.au. You can find us on socials. Skeet, you want the coach's head. I'm going to go find the Hock Tour girl. And what are you off for the rest of the day?
I'm going to try and say Hock Tour, pronounce it properly.
Two.
What? Check
Someone
1 2.
Get this old man
check
out of here.
1 2. Check 1 2.
Get him out.
Check. Well, golf swing's very good though.